This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got it from their world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! They're the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
What up? No, it is a Thursday. We got a big fight coming on. You know what that means. It's another episode of Knockouts and 3 Counts. And we are joined by a good friend of ours, friend of the show, the host of Last Call with Chris Connor. How you doing, brother, man? It's good to have you on the show. I appreciate you having me on your show.
Players on mine. I've been looking forward to this year. We got a lot here. We have pro wrestling. You got UFC 270. You have from what I've heard, the Bullet Club is joining Impact for a special treat this Saturday. Then you got my favorite here is Gary Russell Jr. Mark makes excited. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. But I'm looking forward to you guys because you guys set the bar. I'm trying to match up with the bar here right now.
Greatly appreciate
Hey, man, you're over here talking like you don't have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Okay? If you haven't already done so, make sure you go check out the homie and his YouTube channel. And as I discovered today, not only are you getting all the combat sports goodness, which you can also find here at Knockouts and 3 Counts, that if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you already should be. But, yeah, man, you've got a hell of a lot of shit on your channel. So before we get into talking about all this news and all this other stuff, feel free to let everybody know about your channels, and you're also a fellow host over here on Blue Wire Hustle. Yeah, let everybody know what they can expect from Last Call with Chris Connor.
Well, we're excited about tomorrow's show because we're going to be dropping new Last Call, which we always have, fighters from MMA, boxing. We usually talk about who they are more, what goes on. So tomorrow we got Omar Juarez of PBC. He's going to be joining us. He'll be fighting on the PBC on Fox card on February 5th. We've got, of course, Romero Cotton, who he was scheduled for Bellator 273. That's now up in the air, but we had him on, and we're going to be airing that interview. And then, well, you know what? I can't tell you who the next guest is, but let's just say this. We have another Bellator fighter who's going to be talking about his upcoming fight. And, well, me and Koska Akashova actually had him on. And, well, as my co-host, she had him eat out of the palm of her hand. And, well, at the end of tonight's show, I'm going to announce a special guest we have on Monday, which is going to be a big name. I can't tell you yet, but it's somebody even you'll go, okay, that's an impressive big name.
Well, I mean, dude, you've already had quite the clientele from what I've seen, man. And I'm just saying, I'd love to see some of those faces show up in the Zoom box over here for Knockouts and 3 Counts. But like I said, man, I appreciate you bringing on our show, coming on our show and bringing me on yours. You talk about big guests and all those things. One of the things that we got to get to tonight is going to be the big ass show that GCW is doing, GCW Hammerstein, GCW versus the world. Because on Tuesday, we are going to be joined by everybody's favorite French-Canadian Frankenstein, PCO, as he returns fresh off a signing with Impact. He's going to be in the ladder match at GCW Hammerstein. If you guys are watching, let me know where you're watching from, all that good stuff. But on top of that, like we said, we got UFC 270 and plenty of other stuff to get on the docket. So with all that being said, you said you have a big announcement to come too, so make sure you stay tuned till the end of the show so that you can see that as well. But I figured I usually like to try to go somewhat in chronological order with some of this stuff. So first of all, I kind of want to know what everybody's thoughts are on Gunther. I want to know what everybody thinks about Gunther. I got to make sure I say it Gunther. It's not Gunther, it's Gunther. You know, I don't know. If you guys are watching in the comments, let us know what you think about them changing the name of Walter from Walter to Gunther and doing so after a banger of a match like they had with him and Roddy Strong. Chris, what are your thoughts on the name change? Because if what I'm seeing is true, it looks like they already abandoned the trademark for Gunther. So who the hell knows?
It's very simple. Look, Walter's owned by Walter. So Vince, Vince is a guy who he doesn't want to make a star, and then all of a sudden have people go, oh, well, you can't control him because that's his name. And they've done that before. I mean, we've seen it with, every athlete who's been like, Curtis Axel. Oh, why not just name him, his name is, Joe Hennig. No, we can't do that. We're just going to give him Curtis Axel or Wyndham Rotundo. No. We're going to give you it's, Husky Harris. Or even, and then you add on to that, how Vince does not seem to understand that, if you were foreign, you have to be evil.
Yeah.
As I said, there's a good friend of mine once said, Vince McMahon has done more to ruin international relations than any politician alive.
I mean, that's a hard thing to argue when you think about like Sheik versus Hogan and shit. All right,
what
J Bone.
Sergeant Slaughter. Look at Sergeant Slaughter, dude.
That's what I was getting at. So, what are your thoughts? And for those of you guys watching, let us know. What are your thoughts on Gunther? What are your thoughts on them changing Walter's name from Walter to Gunther? J Bone.
Dude, I get it, right? Like and like you just said, man, it's all a business for Vince. I completely understand it, but from the fan aspect, dude, it sucks. We know that guy as Walter. Nobody wants to see that guy show up and take on a big match or have a great match. Nobody wants to sit and say, "Man, did you see Gunther's match? That was amazing." Like, I'm sorry, but it sucks for a fan. Like I said, business aspect, I completely understand it. Like the examples you threw out there, Wyndham Rotunda and everybody. Look at Bronson Steiner. I understand, but from a fan aspect, nah. You could have came up with something.
Sophia checking in from across the border. What up? Oh, what are your thoughts on Gunther? Do you like Gunther? I need to know. Do you like Gunther?
It could have been anything else. Why that?
If it's my turn, I hate it. Come on, come on. In the modern world now, with everything that's going on, it took one Google search from the whole wrestling populace to just figure out that this was a former Nazi name and everything else that came along with it. And like it, not to just cut off those ties alone. Like, what kind of name is Gunther? Like. Dude, no matter how they wanted to pronounce it, no matter how they wanted to turn it or whatever the fact was, like they could have gone a million different directions. I completely agree with you, Chris. That's probably why they did it, though, is they didn't want to give Walter his credit using his own name. But if you're going to do it, man, you could have did it a million different directions. You don't have to
change it to Larry. Change it to Larry.
Larry. My name was Walter. Now it's Larry. But, hold on a minute. So I've been waiting for a chance to talk about this whole thing since they said that. And so I have a few thoughts on it. Number one, out of the names they could have chose, from the looks of things, it looks like it's just going to be Gunther. So we're not going to get the Stark part with it. So the name itself isn't so much what bothers me. What bothers me is the fact, and what up, though, Kathy? Kathy checking in and letting us know why she can't check it out, but she's got to check out what we got to say about Francis Ngannou. And you're right. Get you a motherfucking twisted tumbler if you haven't already done so. But as far as Gunther goes, my whole thing with that is that it's not so much that the name is bad, right? I really don't. I don't think that the name is so bad. My problem is that it's the same thing like Riddle, right? When he came in, they were calling him Matt Riddle, same as he was getting called in the UFC. They shortened his name to just Riddle because they know everybody that knows him. Walter had such a big name, and we mentioned PCO. PCO and Walter had a fucking banger of a match. When I say people almost lost nipples, I mean people almost lost nipples in that match. I mean, they beat the hell out of each other. If you haven't done so, make sure you go check it out. But I just don't see why they do things like this when we're talking about somebody like Walter, who's already well established. You already had him as your NXT UK champion for how long he was champion. I mean, I think he had close to a 1.5 or 2 year reign as champion. And then you just up and change this motherfucker's name when you finally bring him over here to the States. Like, I didn't understand it. I don't think that it's going to be as damaging for him, but it really just, it's crazy, especially in the fact that Usually, you would think that when we're talking about Vince McMahon, we're talking about a guy who historically is always like big guys. Here you got a big guy that looks like he can beat the shit out of you, can beat the shit out of you, is as believable as you want. I don't get it. And, I asked you guys what your thoughts are. Sophia's checking in from across the border. She said, I don't like the name change either, but if he continues to be a badass and have amazing matches, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
Walter anyway. What if the crowd just cheers Walter anyway? You know what I mean? Like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah. Let me jump in quickly. I want to bring something up. You said Vince loves big guys. He does, but Walter's not your traditional big guy, though. He is built like a Fedor Emelianenko. He's the average guy. You look at the end of a bar, probably go, okay, construction worker. Yeah, he's tough, but he'll get beat up by a football player. He looks dumpy. And we've seen him, and we know he is strong, he's powerful, he's athletic. Vince doesn't see that. Vince still looks at a guy and goes, okay, you're kind of dumpy. You look like you have maybe man boobs. Because that's what Vince loves. We've seen it. He loves Breakus. 6'4", looks like he walked out of a gym and lived there for 8 years, eating nothing but protein bars and GNC. He's got muscles on muscles. That's the Vince big man. Keith Lee, Walter, they're not. They're just, Vince looks and goes, well, yeah. So I'm not surprised. Look, as you said, it's Bronson Breaker, Bronson Rex Steiner. That is Vince's big guy. Guys who are sort of chubby, he looks, I think he goes, no, you're just, no. It's unfortunate, but it's Vince.
I mean,
I can totally see that, man, because he's hard hitting as you want to get. But I agree with you. Sometimes he seems to be more focused on the overall aesthetic of a guy. So I can totally see that, but I agree with Sophia's point too. Again, I don't think the name is necessarily the biggest issue, but at the same time, it depends on how he's gonna work now that he's over here in the States, because Walter was known for a hard hitting style. If you take the name, you could make that work, but if you change what made Walter, or in this case Gunther, I feel like that's gonna be what's gonna make or break whether or not how this is gonna play out. Before we get off of WWE, go ahead.
It's almost like Vince is kind of taking like the pre-social media, modern era approach to Walter and turning him. He's like you said, bringing him over into the States. He's transitioning from NXT UK, and he's acting like people over here just don't know who he is already as Walter, and trying to completely transition his character and everything. And
pretty much
why he was so well established, and that's what made people want to bring him over here to begin with. So
you ever think we'll get away from that? Like,
even if you do get a name change, why do you got to go like completely different direction with it? It just, that's
Sophia coming up with a very good point, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on Chris. I mean, on this one, Chris. I mean, it's a very good point too. She said that she hopes that now that they've done the name change, if they stick with it, that fans don't chant Walter, because if the fans utterly shit on the name change, it could also do negative damage for Walter as well. Kind of similar, if you think about it, to the whole Karrion Kross thing.
I guess I'm old enough to remember when Dusty Rhodes was in WWE, and Vince never got Dusty. Which, when you think about that, that's just like sacrilege. Like, Vince, you have a guy who is over, like peanut butter on jelly. You can do wonders with. No, look at him, chubby, big chub. He's a chub. Vince loves muscles, and you can chant Walter. You can put Walter back on. To me, it's still, look who's in the main event now. That's all you need to look at. It's
he wants
Brock Lesnar. It's Roman Reigns. It's Bobby Lashley. They all look the same. Like they are super. Hero. Muscles out of Bane or Superman. That's the Vince McMahon, new era. He's going back to what works, and what works for Vince is muscles. Chubby guys, out of shape guys, nope, you're out. I mean, and it sucks, but it's true, though. And I just think Walter was a guy I think Triple H loved. And I think, unfortunately, Vince is just going to look and go, I have no idea what's special about him. So, you can chant Walter, you can't chant Gunther. I think this is going to be one of those things where Vince just looks and goes, all right, I gave it a try, just screw it.
I hope not for, like Sophia said, I hope not for Walter's sake. Because, I mean, dude, like I said, it's puzzling when it happens with people like him because he had such a name before he ever came to WWE. Like, that's the thing. And it goes back to what you've always heard when people talk about Vince, in that Vince doesn't acknowledge the other wrestling companies outside WWE, which is why it's such a big deal that they're doing what they're doing at the Royal Rumble with Mickie James, because he just doesn't acknowledge them. It doesn't really matter if a guy has goes and makes a big name outside WWE, because he's not going to care if he doesn't pay attention. Now, don't think they don't have people that don't watch all that stuff so they can know what people are doing. But at the same time, I don't think Vince personally cares about any of that. But speaking of what people care about, J-Bone, I'll let you get first crack at this one. What are your thoughts on the Mustafa Ali asking for his release, and now it's come out that he's been denied his release?
Man, there's something behind that. I don't know exactly what it is because we haven't got all the details yet, but obviously, I mean, the dude's been on the shelf for what, 2 months now? Has been off TV, something like that, somewhere around there. The dude's a talent, clearly. I mean, I feel like he was getting some shine for a minute, but he just kind of went away. I mean, and it's not even just him. It's happening with a lot of people, right? Look at like Asuka, another example. Alexa Bliss. They just kind of
Asuka has got to be one of the most puzzling things in all of WWE.
They just
because your women's division sucks and she's not being used.
Right. And unless we're not being told everything, it's like they just disappear from TV, right? And it's not like they're bad. They're not bad talents. They're not bad to watch. These are decently and very good pro wrestlers. But for somebody to sit back like that, it's just not good for their psyche, I guess. You don't want to sit back and just sit there. You're just sitting there. These guys want to perform, man. And I understand there's TV. There's not a lot of TV for everybody. But when a guy asks for his release, he's clearly not happy in your company. So why tie him up, man? What's that say about you and your company, I guess is what I'm saying. Because if I'm a wrestler and I'm got a pending contract with WWE, I know the money's good. But once I get there, if I'm just going to be sitting in the back, sitting on my ass, I don't think I want to do it. That's just
Chris,
me.
what about you, man? What are you thinking on the whole Mustafa Ali situation?
I mean, it's
Sophia's
unfortunate.
coming in the clutch. She said Asuka's been injured.
Okay, that got past me. I didn't know that.
I'll talk about Asuka in a second. Look, I feel bad for Ali, and I am. There's a lot, I don't, I'm not into his politics. He's a very liberal guy, but look, he's caught in crosshairs, and I think Vince is scared to death of more of these guys end up in AEW or end up even in Impact, and they start shining. You start going, okay, like Vince, what the hell? Like Matt Cardona has had a new life in Impact. You've seen, Malachi Black and Adam Cole and that whole group, shine in AEW, and you start looking, going, Vince, what the hell what's going on? You lost your touch, you lost your fastball. And the fact that the AEW starts, hitting those 1 million ratings. Look, there's probably a lot of guys. I bet, Finn Balor has said on several occasions, look, I want out of here. I'm jobbing to Austin Theory of all people. Get me the hell out of here. Or, Ricochet looking, going, I'm chasing you after the 24/7 title. Are you kidding me? Get me out of here. But I think Vince is terrified of letting a lot of established guys go who will end up in AEW and will, all of a sudden they'll lose the ratings war. And I think they say they don't care about it, but they do. I mean, that's why Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are all of a sudden found right contracts, because they don't want bigger guys heading over to AEW. Next thing you know, they're losing the Monday Night Wars.
Very fair point. Yeah. And Sophia coming in with Asuka too. She said, what if Asuka comes back at the Rumble? I think that could be. I mean, I'd love to see it if there's got to be more surprises that, weren't announced as they had so many of them that were announced. I think Asuka coming back would be a great one because I think all four of us can agree that Asuka's been somebody who's underutilized, man. I mean, like, she's one of the best they've had in the company for quite a while. And like we said, even before she was off TV for being hurt, wasn't in the greatest of storylines. As far as Ali goes, for me, man, it's like you mentioned and like is blatantly obvious. I mean, Ali is a great talent. I mean, I've seen that guy wrestle everywhere from Knights of Columbus here in Livonia, Michigan to the big arenas for WWE, and he's definitely got a lot of talent. The problem I feel like we're going to start running into is, like you said, I don't know that WWE is going to be the destination anymore for people. I mean, I've already heard a lot of people say that it's not. And the problem with that is, though, there's only so many spots other places. So if he eventually does get out and go somewhere, I'd love to see him at somewhere like an Impact or something like that. But even with that being said, especially now that they've denied his release, I wouldn't be surprised to see that they don't try to do something similar with him like they did when Drake Maverick or Rockstar Spud, was supposed to get released, because for the exact reason that you just said, that they don't want to keep letting guys and girls get away and go to AEW. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to think with it, but I mean, I definitely think it's a blind man could see at this point that there's definitely things that need to be switched up. Obviously, things are hitting on good terms and on good cylinders on SmackDown. I think the Bobby versus Brock thing will help Raw to a degree, but it's no secret that SmackDown's been the thing that's been pulling the ship. And with the continued kind of with the continued kind of transition out of the guys and girls that were Triple H's, picks there in NXT. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm interested to see how WrestleMania plays out because Ring the Bell, me and past guests of the show, Mega Ran, will be there. I'm sure I'll be at a lot of the GCW stuff that's leading up to it. So I'm definitely going to need to, I'm hoping that they can beef up WrestleMania a little bit before we get to Texas. As mentioned, we had on Tuesday, we had a great show. If you guys missed it, with the daughter of one of the fabulous Freebirds, the beautiful Miss Miranda Gordy, and she is getting ready to go to war on MLW at the MLW Fusion taping that's going down at Gillies in Dallas tomorrow night and Friday. Like I said, we talked a lot about her match that's coming up with former Ring of Honor champ Roxy. For any of you guys that missed it, I got a little clip that I'm going to play here right now. And then from there, I want to get all of your guys' thoughts on the quote-unquote ROH invasion into Impact. And as mentioned, PCO, who is now signed with Impact and is going to be on the GCW Hammerstein card, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, will be on the show with us this Tuesday at 9 p.m. Like I said, I'm also looking forward to the MLW card. Here's a little bit of what you missed if you missed our chat with the beautiful Miss, the Queen of Bad Street, Miranda Gordy. All right.
This is going to be super special for me. The Von Erichs will be there. It's in Dallas, obviously the history. So that part, I'm like, it's going to be an honor, and it's going to probably pull at my heartstrings a little bit. Just to be in Dallas, it'll be a big deal. As far as MLW, from what I know, they're trying to build up their women's division. So as a woman, that's very exciting for me. It's another opportunity for all these women, like the ROH girls. The free babes. Mickey James came up with that. Like she called me one day and she's like, I have this idea and I'm gonna call y'all the free babes. And I'm like, all right, okay. She wanted a second generation tag team to kind of be a part of mine, and we played around with a couple names and we came up with Haley J, whose mom was a wrestler, so she's a second gen, and then of course Jazzy, who's Jimmy Yang's daughter. Jimmy actually at one point tagged with my brother, so it kind of comes full circle.
Oh wait,
catering, and I was a little late for NWA's catering, but they ordered Emo's Pizza out of St. Louis, which is probably the worst pizza I've ever had. And I'm not gonna knock NWA for it. I'm gonna knock Emo's Pizza. It's cardboard with some cheese on it. It's gross.
No.
Well, apparently the Queen of Bad Street is not a fan of Emo's Pizza. So shit, apparently they need to get their shit together, but she's coming with her shit together, ready for Roxy. And unfortunately, obviously, as you heard in that clip, she was excited to be on the same card as the Von Erichs, but unfortunately, motherfucking Rona, the Von Erichs are no longer on the show in Dallas for MLW tomorrow night. So that's a fucking bummer. But I'm still looking forward to seeing Miranda Gordy versus Roxy. What are your thoughts on Roxy, Chris? And what are your thoughts on what we're seeing from not only Ring of Honor with their reboot that's going to come up in April, but the talent that we've seen go over to Impact?
I enjoyed the last sort of special that we saw with Impact, because all of a sudden you had this fresh invasion. And look, I don't know Cody at AEW likes to say, "Oh yes, we were the forbidden door," but it didn't. It felt just when you saw the Impact Wrestling AEW sort of quote unquote open door. It just felt like, okay, great. It's Kenny Omega doing whatever the hell he wants, and AEW making fun of Impact. This feels like that traditional like Mid-South Georgia wrestling when you actually had invasions, when you actually had guys coming over, and you're like, holy crap, this is it's fun. And look, it keeps a lot of guys fresh. You get to see a lot of these Ring of Honor people who look. The pandemic's hurt pro wrestling. It's gutted a lot of people in terms of their careers, their earnings, indie shows, all of that. So now that you can have a lot of these Ring of Honor wrestlers just on TV, getting a paycheck, getting their names out there. I'm all for that. And it just feels like something different. Like we've never seen this before. We've never seen, like a true, oh crap, this is an invasion. Maybe the closest probably like New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW. But even then, that's been such a long time. So this feels fresh. It feels fun. It feels like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, but I want to see more of it.
J-Bone, what about you, bro? What are you? How are you feeling on where we sit with Ring of Honor at this point? I mean, we've seen so many people go. Like Jay Lethal is over in AEW. We've seen him now debut in New Japan over there with Jay White as well. You got Brody King is in AEW now. You've got all the guys and girls that we just mentioned that have signed to Impact, including next week's guest, PCO. So if you haven't done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Sophia chiming into the comments. We appreciate you all the way from Canada. I like the invasion of ROH and Impact. It was great. I agree with you. And from all intents and purposes, it looks like Ring of Honor is going to kind of like we said, they said that there's going to be the rebranding in April. It seems like a lot of the talent is kind of holding on to see where they end up at, especially talent like Jonathan Gresham. I know it's been announced that at Supercard of Honor, they're going to do Jonathan Gresham versus Bandito, winner take all for all the belts, which I think that's great because then you'll have the one Ring of Honor champion out there. I'm really interested to see how it ends up. I mean, I think obviously for a guy like Bennett that has already been to Impact, I guess you could say step back, but is it really a step back? Because I mean, a lot of guys and girls that we've seen go to WWE or go to wherever, they go back to the places where that were like home.
which if you guys haven't already checked it out, you can check out our interview with Mike Bennett, where he explains why he was liking being back out on Ring of Honor and all these places. But I mean, I'm interested to see how this plays out, just for the simple fact that I've always said that Impact had an underrated product, and especially with them having what I think is the best women's division in wrestling right now, I think the injection of some more talent with them could definitely put them over the top. But
do we know contract wise what's going on with those guys? The guys that jump ship to Impact?
Well, PCO signed. Chris had a little bit of it. Who all did you say signed, Chris?
So supposedly, I mean, I give credit to 411 Wrestling or 411, Mania.com. PCO and Matt Tavern and Mike Bennett, they've all signed along with Maria. I don't know about, Jason, but you probably figure, okay, he's in there too. Nobody knows about Gresham. I'd expect Gresham to end up in Impact. I mean, Jordan Grace is there, his wife. They've been featuring him heavily. They've been pushing him heavily.
So are these like long-term contracts, or is this like maybe something?
I haven't heard anything on the terms.
It's like, it's a standard like 2-3 year deal. I mean, it's
okay. See, I was just wondering if maybe they're going to hang on until Ring of Honor open back up or something, and just.
Well, because think about this too. Impact is also good for, we talk all this about a forbidden door and all those things too, but just because these guys and girls sign with Impact, I mean, Taven and Bennett have already been wrestling in NWA, wrestled for the NWA Tag Champions, which, hey, we've got past guests of the show, Mecha Wolf, one half of your NWA Tag Team Champions. So if you missed that, go back and check that shit out. But yeah, man, like I said, we've already seen that if they do sign with Impact, that's what's so good about a lot of these other companies, right? Like you hear, normally in wrestling, when you hear somebody signed, you're like, well, shit, they're locked up with them. We heard that from Silas Young, who we just had on. And he said how for a while he was only really getting to wrestle with a lot of the Ring of Honor talent. But even in a place like MLW, we know Bobby Fish signed over to AEW, but Bobby Fish is still wrestling with MLW as well. And, there's Lee Moriarty that was over there from AEW as well, too. So I just am a big fan of all the different matchups that are being created with everybody being able to go all over the place. I mean, even furthermore, which I guess is as good a way as any to, kind of bring us into the AEW side of things. I mean, John Moxley right now is the current GCW champion and is going to defend that title at the Hammerstein Ballroom this Sunday in New York. He made his debut or return on AEW on Wednesday. I mean, like I said, I'm liking seeing everybody bounce everywhere, but let's get into AEW a little bit. Chris, what are your thoughts on the return for Mox?
I'm happy for it. Look, I get a lot of these guys you talk to, whether it's pro wrestling, boxing, MMA, and if you get them, I'll say away from the mic and everything, there's a lot of, I'd say, substance abuse, and most of it's, it's the pain pills, it's the alcohol, it's the marijuana, because you're on the road or you're in training camp or you're just, in pain. And I can get where Moxley came from. Hey, I got to do a couple shows here. I got to do a weekly show with Impact. I got to do another show here with GCW. He's been doing the pro wrestling thing since 16 years old, 18 years old. You got to figure his body is just a car wreck. So I can understand him coming back, getting off the alcohol, going to rehab, because for most guys you talk to them, it's like, yeah, we're on this because we don't want to get hooked on pain pills. So we'd rather be, have problems with alcohol and weed and this than, oh yeah, we have problems with methadone or Valium or any other pain prescription pills, which really scare a lot of wrestlers nowadays, especially after all, we've wrestlers' death we've seen in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So 100% with that, man. And the thing with it is, look, man, we saw Mox when we were in Chicago for All Out and all those things, and saw him, go in there and win the GCW title at War Games. And the thing is, dude, like, okay, so the guy admitted that he had a drinking problem. The guy goes to rehab, takes care of his business. You know what, dude? At the end of the day, like you said, these guys and girls are out on the road, even if it's a much more significantly lighter schedule than maybe what they had in WWE. I mean, especially a guy like Moxley, he's been all over the place. GCW, New Japan. I mean, you don't really know where he's going to show up right now. So I think it's great to see him back there. I'm really excited to see him versus Homicide this weekend at GCW Hammerstein. I think his promo that he had on AEW was very good. And I kind of agree with his sentiments towards the guy that was like, "Oh, you're a drunk. Yeah, you're an asshole." So,
what an asshole.
I mean, it's funny how people think like, "Oh yeah, I can just cheer that," and people are gonna just go with it. Like, no, dude, you're a dickhead.
What did that guy think was gonna happen? That's what I want to know. Like, did you think the guy to your left and your right was gonna be like, "I know, man, right? Yeah, good one." Like, is that what you thought, dude? Like,
oh, you got him.
Yeah, right. Like, what the hell were you thinking?
You got to fuck you and you look like a dumbass. That's
like
what
these,
you got.
These guys and girls go out there every week. They put everything on the line. They literally put their lives on the line. And for a guy to come out and wear his heart on his sleeve and pretty much shoot from the hip, tell everybody how he feels and be open to it on public television, dude, that takes some balls. So I don't see how anybody could downplay any of that. So shout out to him. Salute to him, man. And he looks great. He looks healthy. And I bet this Sunday he's going to kick some ass. I'm ready to see that.
I mean, to your point, Jay Bun, he could have definitely did all of that in the background, right? He could have just said he needed to take a leave of absence. He had a family issue. He could have said anything. I mean, it may have came out in the new modern, social era and stuff, but still, he could have done it a million other ways. And the way he literally confronted it head on, made a public statement before even kind of making his initial leave and stuff. It was, you couldn't have done it in a more honorable way. I mean, everybody struggles with their own issues, and for him to face it head on in front of the masses the way he did, it's pretty shitty.
Hats
for somebody
off to that guy,
just,
man.
Yeah.
Well, just like what Sophia said, Mox handled that heckler great. I mean, look, like I said, we all say we want more realism on the TV. If there was ever a time a guy deserved to fuck you, that guy deserved to fuck you.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's get into some of the other stuff with AEW. Before we get off the whole Mox thing, do you guys have any thoughts on who you'd like to kind of see Mox go after now that he's in AEW? Do you want to see him go right back for the title, or do you want to see him kind of tag in with the Eddie Kingston thing? Where do you guys want to see Mox next in AEW? Whoever wants to go first.
You guys take that one. I got to give some thought.
Chris, you can go first if you want.
I don't. It's tough because you don't want to see. They've built up Adam Page as the baby face. So if you put Moxley in with Page, I feel like they will crap on Page immediately because Page has shown really not much character depth, and Moxley is that everyman. So I try to have them stay away from the title. Yeah, it'd be great if him and Kingston, but Kingston has a broken orbital bone, so you wonder, okay, when's he come back? It's kind of tough because you with Moxley, you can't just put him in with any average guy. He's one of the few guys like, okay, you only put him with the special people because you feel like if you put him with somebody like a 2.0 and Daniel Garcia, it's like, wait, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? But I'd probably say if you want to do something here, and I'll give credit to Josh Barnett because he did something similar with this. Moxley versus Jake Hager. You're trying to do something with Hager, and I know that Bellator and him and them are still dancing around. There's some things I think that where both parties are like, okay, maybe this might be a great idea going forward. But look, you have Hager; he's a big guy. Do a lot of these things where Moxley likes to be more stiff. Hager's the guy who knows the MMA world. Do something like that. Do just a straight shoot match there where it's like at least you can then tease it to eventually when Kingston comes back, he's healthy. You can do maybe a Jericho, Hager, Moxley, Kingston feud.
Okay, that's one option. We got one in the comments from Sophia as well. She thinks that the way they need to go with Mox is Bryan Danielson versus Mox.
Ooh. Be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, now that Hangman's got the definitive win, I mean, it would be a good way to keep Danielson up in the top rung. What were you going to say, Corey?
There's just a myriad of options, right? Like you guys said, you can go straight for the belt. You can go to the stars, the new modern stars that they've been able to kind of build up in his time off with the CM Punks and the Bryan Danielsons and so on and so forth. Or you can go kind of the slow build back towards that direction. There's just so many different directions. That to me is the most interesting aspect of it all, is which path do they end up choosing and all of that. More so than me trying to predict or anything like that. It's more so like the thought of there's so many, man. Like there's so many.
Well, you just named one that I think story wise, I think would be a good thing to kind of like sink your teeth in, at least if they decided they wanted to go that way. Because, and Sophia's already chiming in the comments before I can throw it out there. With Mox being somebody who, you know, has shown that he likes the storytelling side of thing too. Now, I don't know if the CM Punk of 2022 would go for it, but what about CM Punk versus Moxley? You got the straight edge guy in CM Punk. You got Moxley coming back off of, AA and all that. Yeah. I mean, shit, I feel like the story that would come out of that, hell, that would be a hell of a run there too. And I mean, and that's an ironic thing to think about too. We talk about CM Punk and the straight edge thing. The Straight Edge Society, well, old Serena Deeb, who he shaved her head, is there in AEW these days as well. So, I mean, it's crazy how the wrestling world tends to come full circle. There's a few other things I wanted to talk about on AEW before we get to the UFC side of things. One of which is something that you already brought up, and I will give my thoughts on it before I catch with you guys. Cody Rhodes came out. Cody Rhodes brought a ladder match out. He said that next week at Beach Break, it's going to be him versus Sammy Guevara in a ladder match, winner take all, kind of reminiscent of WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, title for title, winner takes all. I'm not mad at the decision of how to unify the titles. I'm not mad at that. It's crazy to me, like, so I understand that wrestling fans don't like to, we as wrestling fans don't like to have things for what we perceive to be shoved down our throat. But I had to feel like at a certain degree, like I feel like Cody is getting like a bad rap here. Because for as much shit as he's taken in AEW, I mean, he self-handedly took himself out of the world heavyweight title picture. Now, yes, he's had the TNT title a couple times, but with that being said, he was one of the integral parts to starting AEW as well. And some of the things that he said in his promo on Wednesday lent to why without Cody Rhodes, I don't think that there really would have been a forbidden door in the way that you look at it in this sense, because he brought up a lot of fair points in the fact that when he left WWE, he worked in Impact, he worked in Ring of Honor, he worked in New Japan. They did all in, you know, even though it was a lot of it helped by Ring of Honor. I mean, if Cody Rhodes doesn't go on the run that Cody Rhodes goes on once he gets out of the WWE, I don't know that you see AEW, at least not in the form that you see it now. So with that being said, Chris, I know you said you had a lot that you wanted to say on this one. So what are your thoughts on the Cody Rhodes promo? Do you agree with what a lot of he said? Do you think some of the flack he's taking is unwarranted? You know, where
no,
are your thoughts?
I look, I do feel bad for Cody Rhodes because I get it. He's very passionate about the business. To me, he's too WWE, and I know people still think, "Oh, that's crazy saying that," but for all the stuff Larry done, they've really butchered stuff. Also, which you look at, like he likes to say, "Oh, I created, the Forbidden Door." No, you didn't. You basically went to a bunch of companies. You tried to figure out what was best. He went to the hot group. I mean, the famous promo we talk about is the one where It's him versus Magnus, and Magnus saying, "Hey, you went to the Bullet Club and you reinvented yourself, and you got on that money making trade." That was truth. Then he goes to they do the partnership with Ring of Honor, and great, they find Tony Khan, and they do this whole thing and all that. But let me ask you this: who is Cody Rhodes elevated when you look at it? I mean, every feud, it's 50-50, and he ends up coming out on top. And it's like, okay, you say you don't want to be Triple H, you don't want to be for WWE, and you're pulling the same stuff. Like,
what about Sammy Guevara though?
But Sammy was already over, and now he's like, okay,
over, yeah. But you don't think that him beating Cody when he beat him to take the title off him, you don't think that kind of raised his star power a little bit as far as like
because he's already a star. Miro, to me, Miro's the guy who gives him credit. He became a star after Miro.
That's fair.
I mean, think of it though. Like you talk about here's something that should scare people. If you're MLW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, everybody here. Only one guy on this Forbidden Door has ever won a match on AEW. That was Kenta when he was teaming up with Kenny Omega. So the whole thing of I'm doing the Forbidden Door, I'm doing all this. He just comes across to me like, okay, Cody, yes, we get it. You're upset that people are booing you. You become what you hate. You become John Cena, where it's Super Cody time, and Super Cody can never lose a feud. I mean, Malachi Black should have been over. I mean, they ended it with feud 2-2. It's like, all right, well, there it is.
Yeah.
He's become what is, and Dusty did the same thing. And I love Dusty Rhodes because, look, who wouldn't? But
second most recognizable athlete in the world next to Muhammad Ali.
You know what AEW needs? They need a Paul Heyman who can grab Cody, grab Tony, and all these people. Go, no, this is what has to happen. You need to lose to this person. This guy needs to get over, because it feels like just you're friends with the elite or you're a WWE guy. You get perks, and Cody still doesn't get that. He still thinks, oh, you need to, people, you guys give me credit. It's like, no, Cody, you've become a lot of things that, you hated with WWE, and you don't even know it now.
Okay, so I can
that.
agree with a lot of that. J-Bone, Corey, I want to get your thoughts on it. Sophia chopping in the comments. Do you think Cody is going to win back the title?
Hell no.
I think Sammy needs to win the title. I think Sammy needs to win the title. If you tell me who I think needs to win that match and who should win that match, I think Sammy should win that match. But what are your guys' thoughts on the whole Cody situation with this? What did you think about the promo? Do you think that there's a lot of stock? What are your thoughts on what Chris said?
Well, I mean, real quick, like Chris had brought up, I mean, the whole Malachi Aleister Black thing, that thing should have played out a totally different route. I mean, he had such a big pop in AEW when he had first made it his debut and stuff. And the fact of it was he was doing it because he was doing it over Cody Rhodes, who the fans were maybe sick of a little bit at that point, maybe fair to say. And for it to turn the way it did, and I completely agree with what you said, Chris. It's just they could have done it so much better, and they chose that route. And maybe the Cody Rhodes train is slowly coming to an end, or at least needs to change directions or something. Would be my statement on it.
I think it already hit its peak, man, when AEW started with him. I think even Cody thinks that he had more drawing and more star power than he actually does, because the whole Forbidden Door thing, like, you weren't signed to WWE. It's not like you were signed anywhere. You were just like Chris was just saying, you're just bouncing around, seeing what was your best fit. So I think with the whole Forbidden Door promo, I think he's seen that was trending right now, and he tried to jump the bandwagon, dude. To be honest, I think he's treading water when it comes to the fans. There's really, the hype train's kind of done with. I mean, you seen when the guys were coming in debuting, Aleister Black, there's a couple other guys that came in, they were all going after Cody Rhodes because they thought he was the guy, right? I mean, they could have did that many of other ways now. It's just like, for me, they could have been anybody else. Cody did a great job. Don't get me wrong with the whole AEW thing in the Bucks, but his hype train was just a little more elevated because who was controlling it, who's driving it, rather than what we wanted.
And that's why I think what Sophia said in the comments might be the only way they can go at this point. I mean, obviously he's referenced it in promos, but she said she thinks that Cody would be a great heel. He would be a great heel, and that's because people already naturally don't like him.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. At this point, their fan base doesn't like him. So at this point, I feel like they need to do a switch. I think the only way that it really works is if you turn heel. That being said,
you think he needs a stable with him though? I read earlier.
No, I don't. I think no, I don't. I think Cody, especially with the fact that he's got Brandy around and he's got the Nightmare family and all that, whatever. You turn him heel and just put him back with Brandy how he was on the Indies. He had people all pissed off.
Yeah.
So I got no problem with that.
Let me jump in quickly here because there's two parts I forgot to mention. First, I don't think the businessman cannot turn heel. He already has, 2 TV shows, with Rhodes and then the whole, talent thing there. So that's what I think bothers fans. That okay, are you a wrestler or are you a entertainer who's doing wrestling as a side job? That's one thing. The other thing I just thought about here, and I was thinking about, during this whole promo is, and it goes back to Big Swole where she complained about how, look, there's a lot of talent, it's not getting developed. There's not, the storylines aren't there for a lot of people. And it became this whole racial thing, but that scene is almost like a shot at those people. Like, oh, yeah, so I'm doing all this here. Yeah, these people are holding you down. It's like, no. You and your whole brethren have become those problems because you look at all the storylines, the juicy stories. And who is it? It's the Young Bucks. It's Cody Rhodes. It's Omega. It's MJF, that whole group. And if you're not part of them, like, look at 3 people who they signed who were big stars and they're basically nobodies now. Ethan Page, Brian Cage, Kira Hogan. I mean, Kira Hogan was a rising star in Impact. They signed her. It's like, where's she gone to? And
Brian Cage was the one that you said that stuck out to me because we got to interview Brian. And when I interviewed Brian, it was when he still had the FTW title and and you could see in his voice when he was talking. And we've seen all the stuff from his wife, Melissa, who, has voiced her displeasure with the fact that Brian Cage isn't on TV nearly as much as he should. I agree with that 100%. I mean, it's tough, especially when you've got all these other places where people can work. And we've talked about this on the show for weeks that they're going to eventually hit a point where they're going to get top heavy and they're not going to be able to sign anybody else because here's the thing. You only got so much TV time, even with all the shows that they have, there's only so much time that you can have on it. I want to, before we talk about UFC, I briefly want to touch on GCW Hammerstein. Corey, I know you've said that GCW has been your favorite wrestling that you've been to and that you've watched. What are your thoughts as we go into GCW Hammerstein with everything that's been booked and on the card? And are you bringing your ass off the couch to come check this one out? Because I, for one, am going to be watching this shit at Hammerstein because they keep adding shit. I don't know how they're going to fit this all into a show, but I'm excited to see the shit.
I, for one, will be taking my ass off the couch, but that is because I am taking my ass up north, going to freeze and ride the side-by-side all weekend with my dad and brother. So, no, a change of plans this weekend, actually. Making a lovely trip up north to go play in some snow. So, hopefully fun with that. But that being said, the matches they've announced have been great. That's one thing they've led this into being their biggest show ever, and it seems to kind of be definitely playing in that direction. God forbid everything plays out that way, but the venue is great. The matchups have been great. I want to get you guys are clearly the more in-depth wrestling wrestling opinions than mine. Like, what are your guys' thoughts going into all the matchups that have been announced? I mean, you guys know way more about these wrestlers than I do. So what's your guys' thoughts?
I'll take it, man. I'm pumped for it. I'm staying up late that night. I got to be up early for work, but my ass is going to be tired the next day because I'm staying up for this one, dude. This one, it's pretty much their WrestleMania, right? I think that's well known.
I would say this is even bigger than wrestling.
The Hammerstein is such a cool venue, dude. And like ECW-esque written all over it. You know what I mean? So I think they're gonna pull some shit out their hat, man. There's some shit that we're not gonna see coming. I'm excited for the Briscoes to be there. Effie versus Jeff Jarrett, I think it's gonna be great. Matt Cardona versus George, dude, top to bottom, that whole thing is stacked. And not even just the matches, like just the appearances. What's gonna happen with these people? You know what I mean?
That Effie versus Jeff Jarrett shit that they just had here in Detroit with Effie, cutting his promo, and for them to have this show up on the Hammerstein card. Son of a bitch, dude. This is gonna be badass. Chris, what are your thoughts on GCW Hammerstein?
I like it. And look, it's great seeing all these wrestlers come and if they're not with GCW or if they're not full time, but they still want to work for this company. You have like Ruby Soho's there versus Ali Katch. You got, as you said, the Briscoes, Gresham, and you need this. Mox versus Homicide. If this industry is going to survive, W is going to be fine. AEW will be fine. Even Impact will be fine. But you need more groups like this so that all these guys can have extra money so that they can get on, they can develop, they can build the craft. And thank God that GCW is around, because if they're not around, it's much tougher for even guys who just to develop, even get to that next level.
I'm with you 100%. Go ahead.
As somebody who's attended 3 shows now, that's one thing I can definitely attest to with GCW is they know how to draw a crowd in, man. I don't know how much they're making off of concession sales and so on and so forth, or if they're just making ticket sales off the venue itself. But man, they definitely draw in some crowds, and it doesn't even have to be the craziest venue. Like the first one I went to in Detroit was just at a smaller hall, and it was packed to the brim. I mean, there was literally like standing room only. If you didn't buy a seat, good luck like finding somewhere where you could even see. And it was just they do a great job of filling the house. So for their sake, I don't see them being in any trouble anytime soon, as long as they're able to keep putting out the type of content that they have been.
Well, I'm gonna let you cover this one first, J-Bone, but Sophia coming up in the comments, she said the match she's looking forward to most is going to be Mox versus Homicide. It's going to be Mox's return to the ring after he's been gone for a few months, and him and Homicide are going to beat the shit out of each other. So J-Bone, Chris, whichever one of you guys want it first, feel free to give me your thoughts on that.
Chris, I actually want to get your thoughts on this, man, because I was thinking about this earlier. So what do you think about Mox coming in here first, going to GCW first, having his first in-ring competition back from all this rather than AEW? Do you think that is good for him? It's probably good for him personally, but do you think it affects AEW whatsoever?
No, because I think AEW is fine right now. I think for Mox, he said it before, when he left the WWE, he wanted to be free. He wanted to be able to just do whatever he did, tell the stories, wrestle his guys, go to Japan. And this is one of those things for him. Like, he and Homicide have known each other for years. And for him, it's like, okay, I get to go back. I get to do a kind of match that I want to do. I get to work out the cobwebs. And it's a guy that I've known for a long time. And, hey, you know what? If I can help him out, I'm going to help him out. That's what I love about this. It's like Mox putting his ego aside and going, okay, you know what? I'm going to, do what's best for Homicide and, make this happen here for him.
Violence. That match is going to be so violent, I think, dude. I can't wait to see. You know how Moxley wrestles, man. It's just nothing but pure violence out there. It's going to be a great match. Go ahead, Corey.
That really adds such a layer to that card, too, on top of every other storyline that's been built going into Hammerstein, is that Mox making his return, man. The timing, I guess, couldn't have really worked out any better for GCW in that regard, because I know he was already rumored to be a part of it before the whole announcement of him kind of, going astray and, taking his time with rehab. So it was the timing really couldn't have been better on their front. It really is going to draw some additional eyeballs, and I don't think it hurts AEW in any regard to that point, because all it does is get one of their athletes that more eyeballs on them and continues to drag that. I mean, realistically, most of the people that are watching GCW are going to be turning into AEW anyway, but it definitely helps build that hype for his return to the big leagues as well. You know,
Do you think we see anybody else from AEW jumping ship over there, at least for this Sunday?
it would not surprise me one bit with the way that they built this card up, and it like they've released the matches, right? Like I feel like most of the matches we may see one or two surprise guests throughout those matches, but realistically, I think it's the guests, like you had noted. I think it's going to be the surprise special guests, or after this big match, somebody shows up and hits so and so, and it leads into the next gigantic pay-per-view that they want to try to
Yeah, exactly. Chris, before Kyle gets back, man, I want one more guy I want to talk about on that GCW card is Matt Cardona. Quickly, the rise of his star power, man, since he left WWE. What a story, right? He's got Joey Janela this Sunday. Dude, that guy is a star outside of WWE.
He was always a star of him, because when you look at his YouTube channel, the way he came up with stuff, I mean, you talk to people in the industry, he gets it. He knew how to get over. He was trapped with a 70-year-old, and now you're seeing the stories he's telling. And look, he bounced around AEW, and I think he understood. Look, if I stay here, I'm going to get lost. And I think the Impact. That's one of the few marriages I think that works for both parties at Impact with WWE guy, in that he's not too old, so you're looking going, okay, you're past your prime. He's not being shoved down your throat, and yet there's still this, freshness, because he'll do stuff. I mean, we had Raju on. Rohit even said, "Hey, I enjoyed working with him and Chelsea Green. They were open to doing stuff with me here." You're seeing, they're not teasing a Matt Cardona versus Jordan Grace feud. It's like, this is Matt Cardona at his best, where he gets to just paint outside the numbers, do whatever the hell he wants, come up with creative stuff. And this is, this, as you said, WWE is my developmental ground. This is where I'm now, becoming a star.
And the dude knows how to work a crowd, doesn't he? But Corey, we were there. What an asshole that guy is, dude.
I mean, he does a great job of it, though, right? And to your point, Chris, like him and Chelsea, they do a great job of working together too, and they're doing that on the GCW level as well. Like they just in this most recent Detroit show, they faced Rhino basically, and it ended up being more of them two facing Rhino than it even was just a Matt Cardona versus Rhino match. And it played out great. She ended up getting speared into the table or the door, and it all worked out, right? Like everything worked. The match played out great, but it really lends to your point that she's willing to work in these matches as well to help boost his career. Yeah. He's doing a great job. He ended up walking away. What'd they announce him? The last ECW TV champ or something. Yeah.
Yep.
It was like the whole way it played out throughout the night. That was a cool.
It was
little
badass.
spot.
I loved it, dude.
Yeah.
I love him outside of WWE, dude. He found his way out of there and found his way to make himself a megastar. I'll tell you that it's great what he's doing.
All right. Well,
Cardona, Kyle,
I heard everything you were saying. Matt Cardona had one of the biggest moments in 2021, dude. That when he came there and won the championship like that, dude, that shit was nuclear. And I need to correct you, Corey. She was gored through a door, not speared. She was gored through a door.
Hey,
know your motherfucking lingo, especially when it's the guys from Detroit. All right,
politically correct. He's never going to come on.
Shows my MMA bias, right?
Come on, man. He's a Detroit legend. What the fuck? But I agree with what Sophia said. She said that Mox loves indie wrestling. He'll always go where he can help people's brand. I think he just enjoys being able to get out everywhere. She said he's wrestling on Rampage on Friday. I wonder if that has anything to do with, people giving AEW a hard time that he was going to return in GCW. But I know I, for one, go ahead.
He is going to be wrestling tomorrow. Is that what she said?
Yeah, according to what she's saying he's wrestling on Rampage, so he's gonna return before GCW.
Makes sense.
Like I said, I'm not surprised. I mean, AEW is where he signed to, but I am very much so looking forward to the Hammerstein Ballroom. And again, Tuesday's guest, PCO, will be in the ladder match in that fucker. I'm really looking forward to Effie versus Jeff Jarrett. Like I said, and to go off of what you guys said about Cardona, I mean, the way they did like the pictures with Joey Janela and Chelsea Green, like, I just love that they look like they're just having fun with the shit, man. And like I said, I'm genuinely just looking forward to enjoying this card and seeing what's up with it. But like I said, Saturday night, we also, before we get to GCW, you have UFC 270. There's a lot of stories that are going into this one. Not the most star-studded of cards, but I'm definitely looking to see how this is going to play out with Surogan versus Francis Ngannou, just purely for the fact that going into it, we know that if Ngannou wins this fight, he already said that he's not going to fight another fight on this contract, and that he, clearly is looking to get paid more money. So this is a big fight for Gon any way it goes, because if he loses, you're also probably going to lose a lot of your bargaining chip. So I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to the UFC as well. Some of the notes I had on here heading into this, though, are that what are your guys' thoughts on? So, Chris, what are your thoughts on the back and forth that we've seen with Gon and the fact that Gon is still training with Francis's old coach? Do you think that that's going to really like serve Gon any sort of advantage in this, or do you think Ngannou's going to come out and crush him? Oh, Chris, you there?
We lost him.
We lost him.
We lost
him. He died. Oh shit, he died. But all right.
Just in time.
Corey, take it over, man. Take it over.
Just in time for his response. Of course, the lovely internet cuts out. And,
oh shit, he's back. He's back.
Oh.
He's back.
Sorry about that. All right, so first let me get into Ngannou, because this has been for him it's been a series of events that have led up to this and the hatred. It's you go back a year and a half ago when he won, but he was told, "Oh, you're getting John Jones next." That fight's happening, and then Jones has problems with Dana White, the law, his wife, everybody. So that's on the table. And then they were talking about, well, we're going to get you in the big fight. We're going to get you this. And then he wanted to fight. People forget this here. He wanted to fight earlier. They said no. And when he finally said, look, I can't fight now because I just got surgery, they created an interim title. They put it on Gagne. You add the fact that he's looking around and he's seeing guys like Luis Ortiz making $1 million plus per fight. Guys like Dillian White making $1 million a fight. He wants boxing money. So this has been leading up to the Gagne thing. You get the sense that Ngannou just wants out. He's just win, lose. He's looking to go, okay, screw this. Either get me out of here and I'll go to Bellator, I'll go to someplace else if you want to release me, or if you don't, I'll go to boxing. I'll find somebody a la Heyman, a la Schefter, who will take me to court and they'll get me out of that contract of boxing. The Gagne thing is very simple. It's, Ferdinand Lopez is one of the best trainers in Europe. Ngannou wanted to go to Vegas for many reasons. Some of them, we're still not sure of. Others were he wanted to improve on his wrestling. Gagne, though, is happy in France. He has more of that European style where he, uses judo, some submission, kickboxing, straight boxing. And Lopez made him into a guy where you look and go, okay, there's no weakness with Gagne. That's the scary part.
All right, Corey, what are your thoughts on Ngannou versus Gon? just what we've got going into it.
I couldn't agree more with the whole point. That's the thing that makes Gon so intimidating, I guess, is like he really does. When you watch his game and everything that he's been able to showcase in the UFC to this point, he's looked untouched in every area. I mean, he outstrikes everybody when he tries to take people down. He can. When he wants to implement his submissions, he can. It's literally what does he want to do, and he's able to implement it. So the question is, with Ngannou, the just raw power, the size, and just the ability to put somebody out as quickly and as viciously as he can, does any of that matter? Is the whole thing. Really, does any of the technique, does any of the skills that he possessed matter when you're facing somebody with that type of one striking power? And it's just, he really needs to only connect with one hand, and that's what worries me. I feel like in the long run, we may end up representing Gon as like the true like pinnacle of what a modern heavyweight can end up becoming. But he's so young in his career, and I feel like Ngannou's just got that animal that it's going to be such an interesting fight. I don't want to necessarily say like Ngannou's just going to be able to hit him and go out, because Ghana showcased some of the single best heavyweight footwork I've seen out of anyone. And that's what kind of makes him stand out amongst all the modern class heavyweights, is he's just able to kind of float in there so much more than what you see all the other guys able to do. And is he going to be able to do that, though, against somebody who very well might just charge at him and keep him on the back foot the whole time and just throwing bombs until he runs out of juice? This fight could go so many different directions, man. And with the improvements we've seen from Ngannou in his last fight over Stipe, who knows? He took a significant layoff going into this fight. I'm assuming he improved those skills even more. So what are we going to see going into this? It's just there's so many different layers, and then you add in the whole contract thing and him wanting to do boxing and stuff like that. Is that going to weigh in on his head? Is that going to be too much going into the fight? It's a thick onion, boys. There's some layers here for sure.
Well, Chris, what about you, man? How are you feeling about all the back and forth? What you being somebody that is deep in the fight game as well? You know, what are your thoughts on everything we've heard going into this fight with the sparring footage that was leaked and all that stuff? What are you feeling with all the headlines that are going into this fight?
It should be a good fight. I mean, I honestly think there's going to be a better fight, and I'll be happy to talk about the co-main event, which is Devastin Figueroa versus Brandon Moreno. But as I said, there's a weird feel almost to this. It's almost like, it's Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane versus Dana White, because Dana's right behind all this here. Cyril Gagne's Venus, it's star for him. He's agreeing with stuff. He's not fighting. Dana, and look, Ngannou is represented by a guy who is with CAA, who used to work under, Dana of the UFC. So there's that part to it. So this whole thing is just like a lover's triangle quarrel with so many moving parts, so many people who are pissed. So many people are like, yeah, if we win, we're taking the title, we're going home. Or, yeah, we lose, see you later, I'm going home. And so it's just, you're looking going, it can either be great and it'll be a violent fight, or this could be something dull and ugly because it's heavyweights and sometimes they can stink out of a joint.
Yeah, and we've seen Ngannou put on one of those performances when he faced Eric Lewis, but I just feel like the way that Gon is, even if Ngannou tries to kind of play it slow, I feel like that's going to go completely the worst direction he could, because that's one thing that Gon's been able to do, is he's been able to implement that pressure, that footwork, and work angles on all these guys, and that's what's got him so far, interim title and now fighting for the title. I don't think trying to take it slow against Cyril Gane is at all the best direction for him. I mean, we'll see how the whole fight plays out, but yeah, the management, like I say, layers, man. There's so many to this, and I had brought it up on Tuesday's show that if you're a big fight fan and you're always talking about fighter pay like a lot of these internet fans are, You want Ngannou to win just because of the simple fact that opens so many doors for different fighters throughout the not only UFC but boxing, and just it opens a ton of doors in general. And it really sets a precedence where, hey, yeah, I won your belt. Hey, I'm willing to sit out the remaining time that I have left on this contract just so I can make some money that's actually like feasible for the risk I'm doing. All the time, all the training that I do, and then he's talking about he doesn't want to fight for 500,000 anymore. If you're the heavyweight champ of the UFC, the baddest man in the world right now, and he's still fighting for around 500K, that's insane. I mean, it really is. With the level of star that you have in somebody like Ngannou, it's insane. So it's just, it's so many layers to this fight. I'm really curious how all of this weighs on Ngannou. Does he go in there stressing? Does he play the game differently than he normally does because of it? It's curiosity is the biggest thing going into this fight.
All right. Well, J-Bone, what are your thoughts on the coming into it? And we'll make picks here.
Man, I agree, man. I think there's just too much. There's too much on the mental plate for Ngannou right now, man. There's just so much with the fighter pay and the whole training camp situation, man. The time he's been off, I think he's fighting for something different. You know what I mean? I know he's the heavyweight champ. He's fighting for that title, but this guy might be fighting for something different. It's going to go one of two ways. Like you said, the pressure is going to fold on him and he's going to collapse, man. He's going to come in there and try to kind of like slowly gain on Gan, you know what I mean? But I don't think that goes well for him. He's got to get in there and he's got to get him out of there quickly. And if he does it that way, either way, I still think this is going to be his last fight in the UFC. So he's either going to walk away with the title or drop the title and say, screw you guys, or he's going to get beat. It's going to be, you know, one of those boring heavyweight fights where he gets picked apart the whole fight and he gets cut, goes to boxing or something. I don't think we're going to see him again in the UFC.
So yeah, I think the only way it works out is if the UFC, if he does win this fight, gains enough star power to where the UFC sees a viable big boxing match that they can also dip their pockets in. Other than that, yeah, I agree with you. He's going to end up walking away just because of the simple fact the UFC can't keep him as active as he's wanted to be. That's like the big sticking point in his contract negotiations. He wants to move forward.
Right.
You know, he wants to be more active.
Here's the thing with that, dude. Okay, so I think if Ngannou loses, I definitely think Ngannou's leaving the UFC. I think there's no way Dana's going to pay them, and I think he knows that he can make money elsewhere. That being said, I think there's a lot of petty bullshit going on in this fight, especially after watching the Countdown special where you're listening to Ferdinand talked about, you know, like the beef between him and Ngannou. And I understand not wanting to uproot your life from France, but I also don't blame Ngannou for wanting to come to America to have better training and because he liked it over here. I can see both of their sides, but with that being said, I think it's a little dirty that he put out that sparring footage because, like, you know, you also heard Ngannou say in the Countdown where he's like, yeah, it's funny how you are able to release that footage, but you don't release the footage of me dropping Gan on his ass in sparring either. Right. So, I mean, and he's got a point. Right? And the thing is, when you look at the sparring videos that they released, you can see it doesn't look like either one of them is really trying to throw like full bore, which you never really are supposed to be doing in sparring anyway. So that's number one. Number two, you know, you heard, you know, them say a lot about Ngannou's ego and things like that. I think it's going to make a good fight for the fact that they both know each other. But something tells me that Ngannou really steps up to the plate on this one. I feel like we saw the most complete Ngannou that we've seen against Stipe, and I think the extra motivation with him essentially needing to get this win, you know, to solidify everything that he's saying. I don't know, man. I think Ngannou wins. So I think Ngannou wins, and if he wins, I think it's going to be by a knockout. Corey, who are you picking? Quickly, who are you picking?
Well, if you're just saying quickly, I know we're in a rush here. No, Ngannou, I want to win because of the simple fact that I had noted a million times. I want to see the betterment of fighters in general, and I feel like that's the direction that it needs to go. But not as quickly. Gon has impressed the shit out of me with the lack of shit talk and just the confidence and not cockiness going into this. He's talked about how he feels as though he's going to be the champ. Even with the feud going on between his head coach and former athlete that he's trained with and everything like that, he's kind of kept his head down and kept out of it, and he's just kind of done his own thing throughout. He doesn't really seem like he wants to be involved in that, and he's done a great job of doing that. So it wouldn't surprise me, man. He's looked calm, cool, and collected in every one of his fights. And if there's one to do it, man, this is the one you got to do it in. You can't miss a beat against Ngannou. That's for sure.
All right, Chris, what about you, man? How are you feeling about how do you feel this one shakes out on Saturday?
When you look at Gagne, he every time you think he's going to have trouble, he just either evolves or he figures it out. You know, I picked Yarizina Rosenstrike to beat him in when they fought, and he kept Biggie Boy off balance. He threatened some submissions, threatened some wrestling. Made Biggie not throw too many punches, and he got the win against Volkov. He quickly realized, okay, this is the pocket. This is where I need to do to land a jab, and he just outstruck a much taller guy. And then Derek Lewis, we all thought, okay, well, he's going to get cracked. And yet he went out there and literally just beat the holy hell out of Derek Lewis, which nobody ever did before that in the way that he did. And so, look, I think the first round is going to be the most interesting round. If Ngannou can catch him, it's all over. But the longer the fight goes, the more you look and go, that's a Gagne fight, because he has no problem dragging it deep water, taking you into round 2, 3, 4, 5, and just wearing you down with kicks, wearing you down with a takedown, some submission attempts, wearing you down with just constant, jabs, strikes, and everything. And I don't like a guy who, and the guy he's almost been out for a full year. That worries me.
J-Bone, where are you going on this one, man?
I'm going to say Ngannou, man. Round 2, knockout. Short as can be.
All right, so we got 2 for Gon, 2 for Ngannou. Like I said, man, I wouldn't be shocked if Gon wins this one. I think technically he's much better than Ngannou. I think my more reasoning on picking Ngannou, I think that even though Gon is harping on the fact that he's got the better movement and all those things, I feel like once they get out there and that power really gets unleashed, I think that's where we're really going to see anything. But like we said, that's not the only big card fight that we have on UFC 270. We have the third fight in the trilogy between Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, which we all know the first fight ended in a draw. The second one, Brandon Moreno choked Deiveson Figueiredo into submission. And here we go into the third fight, this time with Figueiredo training with Henry Cejudo and all those guys over there. And we're seeing, a very confident Figueiredo going into this fight. How are you guys feeling about the trilogy fight for these two?
As a big Brandon Moreno fan, that part significantly worries me. Not only the fact that he's looking as confident as ever, because he always is confident, right? He's almost, like I had said, confident, not cocky. He's more on the cocky side, right? Like he's in there talking shit to all these guys and making it known that he feels as though he's the king of the division. But even coming off the loss, he's coming in with a little bit of a different aura around him. He seems like he's taking it differently. He's not necessarily going in saying that I'm the biggest bad, he's like saying I'm going to win, but X, Y, and Z. And him training with Henry Cejudo, who's somebody who showed Brandon Moreno in his younger MMA years a ton of probably what I'm assuming he still implements to this day. That part worries me as well. That being said, though, in that second fight, we've really seen a whole different showing from Brandon Moreno. I don't know if it was something negative on the Figueiredo side, maybe, if he just wasn't able to show up or something for that fight, but Brandon Moreno was just dominant as could be in that fight. He really won it from the beginning to that very end where he got him tapping. It was such an impressive performance that it's hard for me to even kind of see it going the other way. But that first fight showed you that he definitely has a route to winning, because if it wasn't for the point that was taken away, he would have won it on the scorecards, because that's the reason why it was a draw. Brandon Moreno, I feel like will be able to get it done, but how is the question, and how tough is Figueiredo going to be in the process?
All right, Chris, what are you thinking on this one, bro?
You know, it's funny. I remember interviewing Brandon after the Figueroa win, and we talked about a lot of things from him representing Mexico to family to everything that he's been through. And we forget that with Moreno, he's had to do this the hard way. And there's a mental toughness with when you have that you can't, you literally cannot, shake, because this is a guy who's been cut several times. He's been told, no, we don't want you. We don't want flyweights here. He has had to, reinvent himself. He's grown up before our eyes. And I think I just favor him in this fight because to me, he's the more tougher fighter. I'm not saying that Davidson is, but there's a specialness when you have a guy who there's been pressure on him the last couple of fights.
Moreno's still got that dog in him.
But it's even more than that. It's like he knows he's the face of Mexican MMA. He knows that, he is this icon, in Mexico for the MMA community, which they've been dying for somebody. He is that one. And add that to the fact that, he hasn't lost since Sergio Perez, Alejandro Pataula, that has the win over Davison. He knows how to beat Davison. To me, that's the X factor. It's like, okay, they've had 2 fights. He won the last one. Yeah, I know that, Davis has made some camp changes, but at the end of the day, Davison is what he is and Brandon is what he is. And I always favor the guy in a rematch because he just knows how to win. He's done it before. He'll do the same thing. He knows how to just beat this guy no matter what.
All right, J-Bone, who are you picking?
I'm with Chris, man. Taking Moreno. Viva Mexico, right? Dude's got a lot of riding on his back, dude. This guy's, and I think he's gonna do it the same way. You can be as cocky as you want. You come in, you get stretched out, man. You get flattened out on the mat, you're getting choked out. That cockiness goes out the window. I think he's gonna do it the same way.
So I think it's gonna be a much better fight this time. Number one, I think that Figueiredo is gonna come in, like you said, Corey. I think it's a lot more of instead of a cocky mentality coming into it, I see more of a confident, like I've put in the work and I know what I'm going to do kind of confidence in this fight as opposed to the other two. That being said, I kind of agree with along the same line of thinking that you guys are saying. I think Moreno is going to win. I don't know that he finishes him again, but again, I've talked about this on the show multiple times, especially, having stepped in a ring before. Like, a lot of what goes on in fighting is a mental game. Like, at the end of the day, Moreno knows that not only did he take the champ to the limit the first fight and it had to go to a draw, the second fight, he dominated and won by submission and took out what everybody thought was the most unbeatable guy at 125 at that point. So I think for the mentality point alone, I think Brandon Moreno gets the job done. But with that being said, I also think that it's going to be a lot better fight than last time. Like, I think it's not going to be where Moreno's just going to run through him. Like, I feel like Figueiredo is going to come out in a lot better shape. I think Figueiredo is going to come out a lot better prepared. And I think we're going to see overall, I think we're going to see a much better fight.
Go
ahead.
To your point, Kyle, I agree. We could either see it kind of 2 ways. He could either run through him in kind of the fashion that he did in the second fight, or we could see it's kind of similar to like the Rose Whaley fight in the second one, where it was just a battle out fight. You could have kind of scored it either way, but in my eyes, there was more of a clear winner, and I feel like that may be the direction this fight ends up going.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's definitely going to be a banger. Another fight that we got to talk about on this card is, because he's a past guest of the show, you've got the return of Cody Stamann this Saturday, as well as he takes on Sayed Nurmagomedov. God damn, are they just trying to like recreate like the Rocky versus Drago thing with Cody at this point? Because what the fuck, they keep trying to feed him to all the Russians and shit. But you already know which way we're rocking in this one. Like I said, Cody Stamann is a past guest of the show, Michigan boy. I saw him in Vegas when I was at Extreme Couture. I'm rocking with Cody Stamann on this one. But what are your guys, Chris? What are your thoughts on Stamann's fight for UFC 270?
You want him to win because, and like I've had Cody on the show. I love dealing with the guy, and I remember after we talked with him right before the Marabda Shvali fight. He talked about how the Rivera fight he just wasn't there. And look, credit to him. He fought Brian Keller way back. Well, I was going to say a year and a half ago on the passing of his brother, and he really fought through that. He then took on the Rivera fight short notice, and he even said, like, look, I shouldn't have taken that fight. I wasn't, I need to grieve. I wasn't, mentally there. And, credit to Jimmy Rivera, but it wasn't myself. And then the Shvali fight, a tough loss. I want Cody to win. My worry is that he, and especially against, Saeed Nurmagomedov, who, like that whole clan, they excel in combat sports. He just doesn't have that one thing that can put him over the edge. He's not dominant in one thing where you can go, okay, his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu will take this, or his striking will take this here. I hope I'm wrong. My heart says Cody, but the head's saying Saeed just because I think his striking is just good enough to beat Cody's.
All right.
That's the thing that worries me as well going into this fight, is that his striking is not necessarily significantly better, but it is maybe a tier or two better. And with that, they're both phenomenal wrestlers. So I feel like that may end up counteracting itself like it normally does when you get wrestler versus wrestler, and it ends up being a striking match. So that part significantly worries me, but the old American versus Dagestani wrestling matchups always exciting to me, seeing how those end up playing out. I really do hope for Cody Stamann to be able to turn things around in this fight, but I feel as though they keep giving him these tough matchups for a reason. That's because he is a legitimate force in the division. It's just they know if somebody's going to be able to beat him, they'll be able to move into the top 5 of the division at some point, and this is another one of those fights. Sink or swim type, mentality in this one, unfortunately.
I agree with that. I think a lot of people sleep on Cody's stand-up as well, though, because knowing the people he trains with, like Kara Rowe, who also works with past guest of the show, Kenny Cross, past guest of the show, Bobby Nash, who we might be seeing make a return back to the UFC soon. Like I said, I think in a lot of ways his striking goes underrated, but I agree with the points you guys are making as far as Nurmagomedov goes. I think it's going to be a tough fight. Like you, Chris, my heart on this one is with Cody. I'm going to pick Cody, but it's definitely going to be a very tough fight. Before we get out of here, I know you still have your big announcement to drop off as well. Everything, as we always say on here, and as they say in the pro wrestling world, card is subject to change. But speaking of Cody Stamann, we're also, hopefully going to be joined by the return of a guy who knows Cody Stamann and the Michigan clan here very well, in one Vince Murdoch off of The Ultimate Fighter season 29, who also is one of them OG guys with Darren Kirkshank and all that as well. He's coming and going to be going to war here in Lansing on the same card as Justin James for TWC February 5th. So hopefully we're going to have Vince back on here and Justin as well before those fights go down. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all that stuff. And once again, if you guys are into the college wrestling thing, your boy will be back behind the fucking mic for the Henry Ford Hawks for their wrestling tournament they've got coming up as well. I'm gonna try out my inner Jim Ross on this one and see what we can get done. But Chris, the floor is yours, brother man. Feel free to let anybody let them know anything that you've got coming up on your show that you want them to know.
I will. First of all, I
anything else.
do want to get your thoughts on one fight. I know we were talking about off air. It's going to also be this Saturday. It's on Showtime. It's Gary Russell Jr. versus Mark Magsayo. And I bring it up because you mentioned Moxley, how Moxley has gone through hell, went to rehab, and come back. And it's funny, we had Gary Jr. on the show, and he's been gone for the last since 2020. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, he's this is the Russell thing once a year," but I want to bring this up to people here who've criticized him. People forget, in the end of 2020, the youngest brother dies, and the father, it's during COVID. It's COVID related. The father can't train anymore because he was the head trainer because he has diabetes. And so Gary Russell Jr. now takes over as trainer. And I bring that up because he had to corner his brother and train one of the younger brothers, Gary Antonio. And we had Gary Antonio. He said afterwards he broke down in tears. And for the last year, Gary Russell Jr. has had to work one of his brother for 3 fights, another brother for another fight. He's taking time off to do all this here. He himself has said, look, my father now has had his foot amputated. I've been dealing with this. I have not had a chance really to, mourn my brother at times because I have to be the adult now of this whole group here. He's taking on Mark Magsayo on this Saturday here. It's undefeated versus the champ. And there's a lot of people I talk to who think that Magsayo, who is a Pacquiao disciple, who is the next, great young, Filipino fighter, is going to beat Gary Russell Jr. just because, hey, look, you have a guy here who's been out for a while and is his mind still in it? Or is he still, grieving because he's had everything happen under that family? And as we've seen with Cody Stamen and John Moxley, sometimes the demons do get a better view.
Being a straight boxing guy from when I first started training and things like that, I watched Gary Russell a ton when he was fighting on Showbox and all this kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan of Gary Russell. I definitely agree with you. I hope that he's able to bounce back, but he's definitely got himself a tough fight on this one. Again, this is going to be another one kind of like Cody, maybe a little different because we haven't had Gary on the show, which, Gary, if you hear this, I mean, hey, the door's open, brother, man. But with that being said, again, I watched Gary Russell a lot when I was coming up in boxing as well. Like I said, I started with straight boxing, so I would watch a lot of Showbox, The New Generation, all that kind of stuff. So Gary Russell Jr. is a name that I'm aware of. Now, like you said, his opponent is a Pacquiao disciple, and it looks to be the new young buck from the Philippines. But with that being said, I think experience is going to do the job for Gary Russell. But I just hope, regardless of what the outcome is on this fight, I just pray that all the outside stuff outside the ring doesn't cause too much of a problem to where Gary Russell is at least not able to go in there and perform to the best of his ability.
Yeah, that would be my biggest opinion as well, is that whenever you're dealing with a ton of stuff like that going into a major fight, and especially something along those lines going into a title match, that even adds so much more to it. You just hope the best. You hope that outside the ring stuff doesn't work its way into the ring. That's really my best opinion on that one for sure.
I don't know, man. We got a lot of fighting. We got a lot of wrestling, and it looks like it's time for last call because I got to go throw the fucking mail and all that good stuff. But, Chris, I appreciate the time, brother, man.
No,
like
I appreciate it. I'll give you my final teaser because I know you've been asking here. So you've been setting the bar here. So I figured, okay, I need to get big guests. So we're proud to announce that this Monday, Keith Thurman, one-time Thurman, we're gonna have a sit-down interview.
I like it.
Yeah, you know what? He's fighting on the pay-per-view here, and he's told us he's gonna talk about everything here, from the layout to Pacquiao loss, criticisms. And if you've ever heard of Keith Thurman interview, he does not hold back. He is not shy. He does not care. He's a trash talker, he's intellectual. I'm looking forward to it here. As I said, we finally got him on. We had to do some negotiating, some cajoling, some bribing with interns and everything. But Keith, one-time Thurman will be on Last Call this Monday.
I like it. Dropping bombs out in this bitch, man. Yeah. I've been a big time fan of one-time Keith Thurman for a long time, man. Like I said, if you guys are combat sports fans or pro wrestling fans, which if you're watching this show, I would assume you're one or the other of both of those, or you're just a kind soul who likes to try to show support to people. But that being said, Chris in the Last Call is definitely a place where you need to check him out. Like I said, there's a lot of great interviews there. You talk about getting big guests, man. I need you to hook me up with some of these big fighting guests that you got over here. Don't sell yourself short, brother, man.
As you said, you have an in-depth line of the Ring of Honor. You have now Miranda Gordy. I mean, you're getting guests, and I even can't guess. So kudos to you there, good sir.
Hey, man, I appreciate it out here, dude. We're trying to make some moves. I mean, like I said, if you guys are new here, last year was a good year. We got to branch out a little bit. We had Detroit Red Wings, great. Darren McCarty on with us. You had Chris Cale from Five Finger Death Punch. Like I said, hopefully Vince Murdoch, fresh off his first fight after the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, man, there's good stuff going on here, man. But like I said, I really appreciate the time and was glad to have you on. Like I said, hopefully we can bring some of those guests over here to Knockouts and 3 Counts and vice versa, man. I appreciate the kind words about the people you've been seeing on this other side of the Zoom box over here. And like I said, man,
enjoyed that. We got to do this again soon.
Hey, dude, I'm with it. Like, dude, anytime you want to come on and shoot the shit about headlines, man, like I said, we're always open for it. Like I said, we usually run Tuesdays. We keep it interview side. Thursdays, you're covering more of the headlines and things like that. And with Royal Rumble coming up and WrestleMania, which ring the bell, I'm going to be there for that bitch. There's going to be a lot to talk about on the world of pro wrestling and MMA. We'll definitely have you come back maybe after the fight or for another one of these big fights, dude.
Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I've been flapping my gums enough. I don't really want to go throw the mail tomorrow, but I'm sure you motherfuckers got bills that you want to pay. So until next time and in the in-between time, I appreciate you guys. Peace.